this full immersion setting, we will work to develop children's English abilities in the same way they learn Spanish from you, their parents. Research has shown that making the second language the sole medium for teaching any topic, instead of teaching the second language as pieces of grammar to be memorized, results in more students reaching higher levels of proficiency. This approach to second language and literacy development has proved itself to be the most successful language program model available. Students typically achieve higher levels of second language proficiency when compared with students in other types of language programs. Why start now? Because it's easier for younger children to learn a new language. The sooner they begin, the easier it is. Music, rhymes, vivid images, stories, and an amazing teacher who engages with students live, we've put the best pieces together to create a strong program that children will enjoy. Our method combines engaging curriculum and a child's innate love of play and song so that kids learn naturally, not by translating. First, they hear and see, then they understand, and finally they speak. Our class sizes are limited, so all students can participate. Let's look at a sample lesson. Each lesson is broken into 3 stages, much like a Montessori language lesson. First, the vocabulary is introduced. This is a cow. Parents use this technique at home all the time, without even noticing it. See the dog? That's a truck. We understand that young children without expansive vocabularies need to have clear, simple language to learn new words. Naming comes naturally to most parents and is a cornerstone of how new vocabulary is adopted in the classroom. The second stage of the lesson asks students to recognize and point to the vocabulary. Can you show me the cow? Practice, practice, practice. We will play games with children, sing songs, place images on different parts of the screen for memory retrieval, offer new alternatives to compare them to, and spend abundant time allowing children to explore and recognize new language before we expect them to master it. The third stage of the language lesson asks students to produce the language. What is this? This is a cow. Although this demonstration of mastery is the intent of the lesson, the third stage of the lesson is the shortest and the most delayed. In the classroom and at home, it's important to remember this distinction. Children can remember specific information for short periods of time without really understanding it, the same way that you can cram for a test, do well, and then immediately forget the concepts on which you were tested. This is not real learning, yet it's often how language schools work. For a child to internalize the language, he or she needs to practice it. We will take the time to play with the language in the second stage, which is why in PreK, the weekly song classes will be repeated 3 times in a week. In kindergarten, the English language course will repeat a more extended class, but only twice. To summarize the value of these classes and the research that backs up their methods, classes are slow-paced because that's exactly what young children need. Their developing brains are not able to process fast-paced action. We want young children to process what's happening in the class without placing additional demands on their attention. Next, the structure in each class is very predictable, meaning that young children know exactly what to expect. This familiarity with the format allows them to focus their attention on comprehending or understanding the class instead of anticipating what might happen next. Third, we will repeat concepts and new language throughout each class and across the classes to give young children the opportunity to understand. Developing brains love repetition. That's why your kid wants you to read the same story every single night. Fourth, our classes focus on explicitly teaching and exposing young children to new vocabulary. New vocabulary is introduced and used repeatedly throughout each class to allow children to develop familiarity with new words and understand their meaning in an authentic context. It's critical that developing brains hear and use as much language as possible. The latest neuroscience research confirms that developing brains need language exposure for optimal development. Finally, our teachers will elicit responses and singing from children at particular points throughout each class. This forces children to engage with what they're watching on the screen and thus reduces the digital zombie effect, and it encourages children to respond, and in doing so, they use language.